wants to know, Kurt, how's your neck feeling and overall health these days?
Well, my neck is not that great. I have a lot of motor skill problems in my hands, my fingers because of my neck, numbness down my arms. I have a lot of pain in my neck. I've been putting off fusion surgery for, 15 years, and I might not be able to put it off much longer. I'm going to eventually have to have fusion. I've had the quick fix surgeries just so I could get back in the ring again. And, the last one I did, I think, was 2015.
I'm tired of being humble. I'm tired of letting people think they got a chance. The tribal chief is head and shoulders above everybody.
Hey guys, we're here at the Locker Room Toss Ring Scandal. We'll talk about how bad was Kurt Angle's neck, that neck history of Kurt Angle. Let's talk about as we come to Locker Room, time to enter dirty laundry. Kurt Angle, who has history of being WWE Champion, World Heavyweight Champion, WCW Champion, WWF Intercontinental Champion, European Champion, Hardcore Champion, and being the WCW United States Champion, Tag Team Champion, King of the Ring, TNA Impact Champion, TNA World Champ, won Olympic gold medal 1996, NCAA Wrestling Championship that he won twice, and he's been an all-class athlete. But what Kurt Angle is, he's going to talk about interviews that he did on his podcast, Not So Sam Wrestling, and we're going to have a doctor speak about how bad his neck injuries were and how he put off surgery so long, and that his neck was really bad at some points that would cause him to get on painkillers, to be addicted to painkillers, and his grueling work schedule definitely did not help. So with that being said, we're going to tune to that real soon. But he had really bad history of neck injuries. And it's good to say that Kurt Angle is still alive today with us. So it's good to hear that. But Kurt Angle, he definitely went through a lot. Very well accomplished career. Hall of Famer, I want to add as well. Let's talk more about it here.
I need to leave now for a while. Like, not just to get a surgery, not just to, like, I've done so much because, I mean, up until I was 19, right? WrestleMania 19. Yes. Up until then, like we just said, you had done so much, but it's because you were riding the lightning. You were, just boom. Yeah. Did you think at all, like, I need to go home for a couple years?
I wish I would have. The issue I had was I caught the bug. Instead of waiting 3 months to let my neck heal, I waited a month and I came back. I told my doctor, you're going to approve me to come back now. He's like, you're not ready yet. I said, yes, I am, and my neck's fine. So I jumped back into it too quickly, and I broke my neck again. And then I took a month off again, and I jumped back into it again. I broke my neck again.
So that's 4.
Yes, that's one from the Olympics, 3 from the WWE, and then I broke it again a year and a half after that in 2006.
So it's 5 total.
5, yes.
Do you understand what it's like to live the life that you've lived, where you can go? Yeah, to most human beings, it's not fathomable to be like you break your neck. It's like, I'm done. I don't know. Like, that's it. Right, yeah. You're like, yeah, I did it 5.
I know
5 times.
The beautiful thing about WWE is, and I'm not saying that what I did was right, but you can always work around your injuries. So you know your capabilities. If your neck is broken, you know what you can do and what you can't do.
Right.
And you try to stay away from the things that you can't. That's the cool thing about WWE. I was injured 98% of my career. I was always hobbled with an injury. I always had to work around them. And so I was able to do that. And, not that I wasn't taking a chance, because when you have a broken neck and you're wrestling, you land on your neck wrong one more time, you're going to be paralyzed.
Right.
That's what the doctors were telling me. Just do not land on your head. And that's, they said you do that, you're most likely either going to be paralyzed or you're going to be dead.
And is that something that you tell, like, the locker room, hey, whoever I'm working with, you got to know?
Brock, listen, no DDTs. Yeah, nothing where I go on my head.
Yeah.
You have to be careful, yes.
Yeah, especially because, that's got to be very scary for you, because it had happened before. Like, you had taken that pedigree stuff. Like, you'd taken shots that they were describing. This is what you can't.
Kurt, how's your neck feeling and overall health these days?
Well, my neck is not that great. I have a lot of motor skill problems in my hands, my fingers because of my neck, numbness down my arms. I have a lot of pain in my neck. I've been putting off fusion surgery for, 15 years, and I might not be able to put it off much longer. I'm going to eventually have to have fusion. I've had the quick fix surgeries just so I could get back in the ring again. And, the last one I did, I think, was 2015. But I'm going to eventually have to have fusion. I've just been putting it off.
JJ says, is it true that fans ask to rub your bald head when they meet you? A friend of mine said he did, and you happily obliged. Kurt, that's a little weird. Is that real?
Yeah, you can rub my head whenever you want, but only if I'm in a good mood. If I'm in a bad mood, I'm going to knock you out. So make sure I'm in a good mood.
Comes out in the Observer on March 10th, 2003. Angle, the most valuable full-time performer in the company, had an MRI on his neck on March 3rd, and the results came out that Angle has severe neck damage. He'll be the 8th WWE wrestler over the past few years to undergo neck surgery under Dr. Lloyd Youngblood in San Antonio, which will put him out of action for about 1 year. His symptoms, including shooting pains down both of his arms, numbing in the fingers, and a burning sensation in the neck, had gotten worse while on the South African tour this past week. He continues from there, but he basically breaks down that it was a big spot in a match with Brock Lesnar at the No Way Out show on February 22nd in Montreal. That's where the injury happened, but it worsened after a match in Cape Town with Chris Benoit, where the pain was supposedly incredible. What can you tell us about the injury and your visit with Dr. Youngblood?
Well, when I got injured, I had Brock in a chokehold, and I had him down on the mat, and he got up and picked me up on his back and went from one corner of the ring to the other and sprinted as hard as he could. And he turned sideways, and when we hit the turnbuckle, my neck whiplashed sideways, and I heard nothing but cracking and crunching in my neck. I knew something was wrong. My arms went numb. I lost strength in my left arm right away. I knew something serious occurred. And, when after the match, we ended up having to go to South Africa, and I went to the hotel and I went to work out to test my strength. And I went to do a curl with 20 pounds with my left hand, and I couldn't curl it. There was no strength left. So the match with Chris, it just got worse. And so I stayed on the tour, but I didn't wrestle anymore. And I knew that I was going to have to go see a doctor when I got back. I knew it was pretty serious. So when we got back from South Africa, I went to see Dr. Youngblood, and his diagnosis was, 4 herniated discs, 2 of them lodged in my spinal cord. I believe I had 2 broken vertebrae. And he said that I would have to have surgery and that I would be out a year. So when I got home after that doctor's trip, when I visited Dr. Youngblood in Texas, I had a doctor call me and say, "Hey, my name is Dr. Joe. I read about you in the paper, and I want to take a look at you to see if I can help you out." And I thought he was a crazy chiropractor. I thought, this guy's talking about a new surgery, innovative surgery that, no one's ever done. And it's basically neck repair. And he goes in and he cuts out part of the disc that's blocking the nerves or that's lodged to the spinal cord. He cuts part of that out so it's no longer attached to the spinal cord. It's just a small repair. It's pretty basic, and it only takes 2 months to heal back from it. So it was either having fusion and being out a year or getting temporarily repaired and continuing on after 2 months. And I chose the second surgery with Dr. Joe. And he did it. It worked, and I was back in 2 months. It was relatively quick, my return after the WrestleMania match.
There's so much to unpack here. Let's talk about the injury at the pay-per-view with Brock. There's this old school adage that we fans have heard, that there's an attitude amongst the boys that, you don't tell anybody that you're hurt. You keep it to yourself. You try to work through the pain. when you know something is seriously wrong and you hear that crunching before you go do the dumbbell lift, I'm saying when you come back through the curtain after the match with Brock, do you communicate to anyone, hey, I'm hurt? Or do you want to try to self-assess first before you disclose that?
Well, for me, I think everybody knew that I wouldn't complain over something small. So
Right.
When I got back, I was in a lot of pain, and I knew something wrong had happened. And I talked to the company doctor and told him my symptoms, and he said, "Well, you're going on tour, and you just want to go home?" And I said, "No, I'll try to work through it on the tour and see if it's just temporary." And it wasn't. The day when we flew to South Africa, I was in excruciating pain on the whole flight over. It was really hard to deal with and very uncomfortable. So I knew that I needed some serious surgery.
So you get the MRI done, you have the conversation with Youngblood, and before Dr. Joe calls, does it go through your mind, because let's just strip away being a famous athlete and celebrity and all that. There has to be part of the, hey, I'm a father and a dad and a provider. What's going to happen to my income if I'm gone for a year? Does that even cross your mind, or did you just know WWE would have your back no matter what?
I knew WWE would have my back, but the thing is, in this business, you get very few opportunities.
Yeah.
And you have to prove yourself over and over again. So, when you're out a year, you tend to get a little bit unconfident, like you think that the company's forgetting about you. And that was the mistake I made, because I probably should have had the first surgery and waited a year and let it heal and go from there. But I ended up doing the second surgery, and I had to produce, and I wanted to get back to the show as quickly as I could. That was my mindset, especially knowing that I was going to main event WrestleMania. It was, that was a very important point in my life, and a very important moment that I knew that I would cherish forever. So I knew that this might be the only time that I would main event WrestleMania, and it actually.
Hi guys, this is Shanice Carrington, Doctor of Physical Therapy, and today's segment is going to be about the cervical spine, aka the neck. So I kind of wanted to start it off with linking it to football, because that football season is coming up soon. So here's are some of the common injuries that athletic trainers on the field are going to be looking out for. So the top one is any type of brain injury, any traumatic brain injury. They're looking for brain bleeds, aka called subdural hematomas. They're looking for any skin lacerations, any bleeding externally. They're going to be looking for anything that would cause you concern of concussion or a neck fracture. If it's a fracture, you'll see that they'll immobilize their spine immediately. If it's a concussion, that's where it becomes a little more tricky, because concussion is a hard thing to diagnose to start off with. But the main thing is if that athletic trainer has any concern that that player has a concussion, they need to pull them off the field immediately. If they were to undergo another traumatic incident to that brain when it's just going through a fresh concussion, you have something that could happen called a secondary impact syndrome, which basically means that the brain is going through this cellular reaction where things are completely out of whack. But you can't see them on imaging. You can't see them on MRIs or X-rays, because what you're talking about is cellular. But if it's not functioning correctly, if cells don't function, we don't function. So you'll have something that's called a secondary impact syndrome, where it's one after the other. That's called a metabolic cascade, causes brain function to decrease. Brain function decreasing means bodily function is decreasing, so it could cause death. So that's one thing. Second thing is if there's chronic concussions. Say somebody had a concussion this year, and then they came off the field, they did the right thing, and then next year they have another concussion, and then same thing happens the year after, and the year after, and they have these chronic injuries. You can get something that's called CTE, which basically stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which can cause long-term damage. You ever hear those 55-year-olds that all of a sudden their personality changes and they start becoming violent and mood swings and all this stuff keeps happening? It's all because these proteins in your brain start breaking down. So when that starts happening, it's we're already going to go through brain degeneration as we age. So now imagine that all the proteins in your brains are no longer functioning as well. bad things happen with repetitive brain injury, so we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. Okay, but those are some of the big hitters that I kind of wanted to hit on first. Now, I kind of want to talk about stuff that you're going to see every day. You don't necessarily need an injury for it to happen. Like, the first thing I want to talk about are stingers. You know, when people say that, they're like, oh, I've got a stinger, I'm in a sport, or I was at work, and, you know, I have a desk job and I have a stinger. Stingers are just like an acute, kind of like a nerve reaction where either you turn a certain type of way or like it kind of like impinges on a nerve. And normally they go away within like a couple of minutes, couple hours, max couple days. But if it goes on for longer than a couple days and you're noticing like neck pain and pain going down your arm and down your shoulder blade, stuff like that, then that kind of falls to a different criteria of what we call cervical radiculopathy, which is kind of like the next version of sciatic pain, where you can get referral pain down the arms, you know, in the neck itself or down the shoulder blades. So if you're having that and it's going on for longer than a couple of days, like 2-3 days go by and that stinger hasn't fully resolved, that's when you should go follow up and see a doctor. But my caveat to that is when you go to see the doctor, they're going to tell you that they want imaging. They want to get an x-ray, maybe they want you to do physical therapy for 6 weeks and they'll go to get an MRI afterwards. But research is showing us that imaging is not conducive to how you're going to respond to any type of these neck stingers or injuries and neck pain in general. You can have a neck that has herniated disc, bulging disc, degenerative disc, stenosis, like everything in there, and they have absolutely no pain. But you also might see the vice versa of that. You might see a neck that's normal and everything looks fine, but people are having this pain that they're like, well, my imaging looks fine, because the two don't correlate. So when you go see a physical therapist, we'll look at your imaging, but that's not what we're basing how we're going to treat you as, because we basically put people in criteria and then we treat them based on how they present, not what the imaging is showing, because it's just not reliable. So, and granted, there's a lot of things that you'll see, like I'll go over in a future video what disc herniations mean and what stenosis mean and degenerative disc disease, stuff like that. We'll go over what that stuff means in a nutshell, but just know imaging is not everything. And I wanted to give you guys like a few little tidbits of stuff to work on. Either you have neck pain and you should be seeing a doctor because it's been like a couple days and it's not going away. Remember what I said before. Or you are wanting to do preventative treatment, things you should make sure to work on. You want to keep your neck muscles nice and loose. So you want to make sure that your head has good rotation. You should be able to look up. You should be able to look down, side bends. You can just work on some generalized neck stretching in general. And if you're going to stretch your neck, you should also be stretching your thoracic spine. We have our neck, we have our lower back, and in between the two, we have our thoracic spine. A lot of evidence is pointing on having good thoracic mobility. So whether it's like foam rolling or like open book thoracic stretches, which again, I'll go over in another video, make sure to keep your neck nice and loose and flexible and keep your thoracic spine nice and loose and flexible, okay? And the last thing I have to say is posture. Posture, 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 posture. So much of our pain is dictated by a postural dysfunction. So especially the desk jobs, like the teenagers, like this is going to get us every time. So as much as you can, try to make sure you keep your posture upright. Try to work on those muscles when you're in the gym. So neck, thoracic mobility, postural strength, okay? The last thing I wanted to finish off with is I wanted to talk to you guys about when I want you to see a doctor, right? There's things that are like normal, everyday orthopedic injuries, and there's stuff where you just want to make sure everything is going kosher. So when do you see a doctor? If you are having, especially if you've had trauma before you're noticing stuff like this, like a neck injury, motor vehicle injury, anything like that. But even if you're not having an injury, things I want you to kind of put a little bit of a, exclamation point on is if you have a sudden acute loss of muscle strength, like you're dropping things out of nowhere, you can't lift something that you've been lifting your whole life, little things that kind of are new, maybe you want to see a doctor. If you were getting numbness and tingling down both arms, not just one arm, maybe see a doctor. If you are noticing a sudden imbalance, a gait and balance disturbance out of nowhere, not a bad idea to see your doctor. If you, especially if you had a head trauma and you're noticing that it's hard for you to like hold your head up, and you almost feel like you want to hold it with your hands to keep your head upright, go see a doctor. If you are having any deep and nagging neck pain or almost like a localized headache that's worsening and not getting better in time, and it's almost turning into like an indescribable pain, like something that you've never really felt before, and it's significantly getting worse, go see a doctor just to make sure everything is okay there, especially if it's not responding well to any over-the-counter medication, okay? I'm sorry, I know this was a long video. It is hard to put the whole neck down in like X amount of minutes, but this is like a big overview of everything we could possibly see in the neck. especially from athletics down to like everyday stuff. So again, we'll go further into these topics as we go along, but
Hey, that's all we have for Kurt Angle. He went and talked about his neck. He went on his podcast, Not So Sam Wrestling, and Dr. Shanice Carrington to explain more about the neck injury. So we talked about how bad was Kurt Angle's neck, the neck history of Kurt Angle. You guys let me know what you think of Kurt Angle's neck history. And you let me know did you know how bad severe his neck injury was. Soon two videos will pop up, guys. You guys click the links below. You guys already know what it is at this point. It's OUT.